Did you know that the ground beneath your feet is always in motion, and that the land and oceans we call home are really floating on top of a layer of hot flowing magma? It's true. Our Earth has four main layers: the crust, a hard and rigid outermost thinnest layer of the Earth; the mantle, subdivided into two regions, upper and lower, and it is a dense layer made of hot semi-solid rock located directly below the crust; the outer core is the only liquid layer of the Earth, a sea of mostly iron and nickel; and the inner core, an extremely hot solid sphere of iron and nickel at the center of the Earth. It is the crust and the mantle that interact daily and reform the Earth that we know and love. How do I know this? Well, scientists have studied our Earth in detail and discovered many important interactions. It started with the German-born meteorologist Alfred Wegener, who closely studied the Earth, and in 1912 proposed the idea of continental drift. He had observed that the continents seemed to fit together like a puzzle, and the fossils of animals found on coasts of different continents also aligned. Unfortunately, he could not prove how or why this was the case, and he was rejected by his scientific peers. During the 1940s and 1950s, there were huge advances in technology, specifically in the use of sound waves. Scientists began bouncing sound waves off the ocean floor in an effort to make a map of it. This led to a major discovery. In the middle of the Atlantic, Pacific, and other oceans around the world was a chain of mountains and rift valleys. Enter Harry Hess, a Princeton University professor who proposed his theory called seafloor spreading. He put forth that less dense basaltic magma from beneath the Earth's crust was pushed upward through the denser ocean floor. The seafloor would then be forced outward from the opening, spreading the seafloor apart. In 1968, the Glomar Challenger, a research boat, began collecting samples from the ocean floor that would support Hess's theory. Scientists collected rocks and also drilled samples from different distances between the ridge and the coastline. They found that the youngest rocks were along the mid-ocean ridge and became increasingly older as they moved outward toward the coastline. These findings supported both Hess's seafloor spreading and Wegener's theory of continental drift, which combined to form what we now call plate tectonics. So, what does that mean exactly? Well, the Earth's crust and upper mantle, together referred to as the lithosphere, are broken into sections, or plates. These plates are moving on the asthenosphere, or the upper part of the mantle just below the lithosphere. Why are they moving? Convection currents. The Earth is extremely hot in the mantle. The heat within the Earth is trying to escape. Hot magma deep within the Earth rises because it is less dense. The cooler Earth sinks, and there's a constant changeover of the two. Some plates are composed of continental crust, some are oceanic crust, and some have a little of both. Depending on the type of plate at the edge and the direction the plates are moving, a few different things can happen. Whenever two plates are being pulled away from one another, it is called a divergent plate boundary. There are two types. When an oceanic plate is being split, it creates a mid-ocean ridge. This, of course, was what led to the discovery of plate tectonics in the first place. When a continental plate is being pulled apart, you get a rift valley. The continental crust often collapses, leaving vast cliffs and large lakes. Eventually, there will be two separate continents, or a continent and an island. An example of this is the East African Rift, where Africa is literally being pulled apart. The following three examples are converging plate boundaries, where plates meet head to head. When two oceanic plates collide, one is forced under the other. This is called subduction. This creates both an oceanic trench and a chain of volcanoes. When the subducted plate reaches the asthenosphere, it melts. By melting, its density is lowered, so it rises back to the surface, melting through the ocean crust above. This forms a volcanic island chain, or island arc. Some well-known island arcs are the islands of Japan, or the Aleutian Islands. When an oceanic plate and continental plate collide, the oceanic plate is always subducted. This is because the oceanic plate is more dense. When this happens, volcanoes and earthquakes result. When two continental plates collide, nothing is subducted because neither plate is dense enough. Instead, both plates are uplifted, creating mountains. The Himalayas are a great example of this. India into Asia and was uplifted to create those mountains. They continue to grow to this day. The third type of plate boundary is called a transform plate and occurs where two plates are sliding past one another. An example of this is the San Andreas Fault in California. Transform plate boundaries are the cause of many destructive earthquakes. So, although you may not feel it daily, the Earth is in constant motion, breaking apart and reforming beneath our feet and our oceans. How amazing is that?